Hey, what is going on? Welcome back to the vlog. It is a gloomy, chilly Saturday morning, but that's because all the action and the fire is taking place behind me. It's meetup game day. I'm here once again with Kyle Official, and we are looking to mix it up in the 1-3 with the $10 bomb pot. I won't lie, I haven't really played since the big live stream loss. I just really haven't had the time. So that's still kind of looming in the back of my head, but hopefully we can rebound from that and have a good session and make a good episode. So if you enjoy, like and subscribe. Let's get to it. As we take our seats and get ready for this game to start, we have a pretty good amount of vlog watchers here. Clayton is to my right, he's in seat 1. I've referred to him as young Matt Hardy before. I'm in +2. Cane Man, who's been a long time viewer, is over to my left. Kyle's over in seat 7, and in seat 8 is my buddy Anthony. Over in seat 6 is a guy named Josh. Josh is a newer viewer. I met him a couple months ago. He came up and introduced himself at Four Rivers, and it was like the first time I had ever been recognized outside of the car room for my channel. What made it even better was he did it right in front of my wife, and she had this look on her face like, ugh, I'm never gonna hear the end of this. He's over in seat 6, and very early on in the night, he made a declaration.
I'm gonna get on the vlog one way or another, Andy.
In this first hand of the night, we're in the big blind and we look down at ace-7 offsuit. We see it fold to +1 who limps, on Josh and +2 and he calls as well. It folds all the way around to me and I check. We're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is queen 10-7 with 2 hearts, so I have bottom pair here. It checks to Josh, who puts a bet of $5 out. Having bottom pair, I elect to go ahead and call. +1 folds, so we're off to a turn heads up. The turn is an ace of clubs, so now we've made aces up. I check again, looking to check raise Josh right out of his shoes, but he checks behind. The river is an ace of diamonds, so now we've boated up. I've made my full house here, and it's time to go for some value against an ace-x hand, and I fire for $15, almost full pot. It's on Josh, and I see him grabbing some raising chips. Excellent. He bumps it up to $35.
Oh, he wants to make the vlog. I'm gonna raise. 100. All in.
There's really only 2 hands I'd worry about here. Ace Queen and Ace 10, but this was a limp pot, so that seems way unlikely, so I have to have the best hand here.
I told you, this is how I make the vlog, right?
He definitely wants to make the vlog. I'm at call. I have a full house.
I do too.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
Ace 10? I know. You said.
High hand.
High hands.
Nice job. Well done.
They both have high hands.
Runner.
They both have high hands.
How does that happen? Just how? What's even more sick, his full house qualified and held up for the high hand bonus of $599. So congrats to Four Rivers Josh. You did make the vlog. We're in the big blind when we look down at 10-6 of clubs. We see a raise from +1 to $15. It folds all the way around to me, so I defend. We're off to a flop heads up. I check dark as we head to a flop of 7-9-10 rainbow, so I flop top pair and a gut shot straight draw. +1 continues for $20. With a pair plus a straight draw, I think I could definitely raise here, but I elect to just call. We're off to the turn. The turn is a queen of clubs, so now I've picked up a flush draw to go along with everything else. I check again, looking to definitely check call and possibly even check raise on this turn, but +1 slows down and checks behind. The river is a 9 of hearts, so I've pretty much missed every draw that I had. No sense in checking. I'd rather represent the flush, so I kind of lay a blocker bet out of $35. Doesn't take +1 too long to call, and he shows ace queen offsuit, and he wins this one. There's a button straddle, we're under the gun, and we look down at pocket jacks. It folds to me, and I bump it up to $20. We then see a raise from Cane Man and +1. He bumps it up to $60. It then folds to Kyle on the button, who calls. So it's on me, and I definitely see merit to a raise here. But +1 only has $300 or so in his stack. Plus there's still Kyle on the button left to act, and Kyle just made a huge laydown earlier with pocket queens to pocket jacks. You can see that video in his vlog. I'll link it down below. I don't think he's going to make that kind of lay down again, so I elect to just flat. We're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is ace-5-6 with 2 clubs, so we see the dreaded ace on the flop. I start with a check, and +1 fires for $100. The action's over on Kyle, who thinks for a bit, and then rips it for $400 effective. It's back on me, and I obviously don't love the ace out there. Also, being the ace of clubs, that eliminates a lot of ace-x flush draws that Kyle could be doing this with. I could be drawing super thin if not dead, and I also still have another player behind, so I end up making the fold. I'm a little disappointed to see +1 fold right behind, but Kyle was a good sport and he showed me an ace, and +1 said he had pocket queen, so turns out we were crushed the whole time. About 2 hours in, we're in the big blind and we look down at 9-10 of hearts. There's one limp before it folds to Anthony on the button and he bumps it up to $15. It folds to me, and with the suited connector, I'm happy to just call here. I should probably raise since I'm out of position, but in real time I called. The limper calls as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Queen Jack 8. Yep. I start with a check, expecting Anthony to continue betting with 100% of his range on this board, but it actually ends up checking through. The turn is a 5 of hearts, so I need to go for some missed value, and I bet $15, but everybody folds.
Whoa.
You flopped the nuts.
I flopped it and then got no action and wasn't able to get paid at all.
We're straddling from the button this time, and we look down at 10-8 offsuit. It folds to +1, who bumps it up to $20. It folds all the way around to me in the straddle, and I'm happy to defend in position, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is Jack 8-4 with 2 spades, so I flop middle pair and a backdoor straight draw. +1 checks it over to me, and I think I need to bet to charge a hand like 9-10 or Queen 9 suited and spades, and so I fire for $20. +1 makes the call, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 5 of clubs. +1 checks to me again, and I'm going to continue to tell my story that I have a strong hand, and this time I bet for $60. Once again, +1 takes his time with his decision. He begins to grab what looks like some raising chips, but then he goes back to shuffling the $5 chips. As he continues to think, I think he's putting me on a flush, and I start to wonder if it's a hand like ace-queen or maybe ace-x with the ace of spades or maybe even pocket kings. After almost a full minute, my opponent ends up making the call, so the plan is, on any non-face card, non-spade, I'm going to rip it. The river is a 10 of hearts, so now I've actually backed my way into 2 pair, so if I am up against something like an overpair, I should have them crushed now. For the 3rd time in a row, +1 checks. There's $200 in the pot. I've only got about 205 in my stack, but now I'm starting to realize something. If I jam, my opponent's going to be getting like 3-1 to call me, so I probably should have jammed the turn so that I didn't wind up in this awkward spot, but luckily I rivered 2 pair. I do give pause to the fact that I did mention earlier he might have a hand like Queen 9, but if so, it's just a cooler. I rip it. Once again, +1 takes his time with this decision. It's obviously not Queen 9. It's really starting to feel like ace, queen, or kings. He checks his cards again and continues to think, so I'm just praying for a call. He takes one more look down before eventually tossing his cards in, but we get to scoop some much needed chips in our direction. There's a button straddle, we're in the cutoff, and we look down at ace-queen of hearts. There's a raise from the big blind to $20. It folds to me, and I think this is a standard 3-bet spot. I bump it up to $60. The button folds, but the big blind ends up making the call, so we're off to a flop in position heads up. The flop is 9-7-3 with 2 hearts. The big blind checks it to me, and I'm going to go ahead and c-bet my flush draw. I make it $50. The big blind thinks and then makes the call, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 3 of clubs, and so it pairs the board. My opponent checks again, and I ask what he has behind. It's about $275. There's $170 in the pot now. Even if I go like 2/3 pot at 115, then his only play will be either jam or fold. And I don't want him to jam, as that's going to leave me with only about $125 left. And so I actually end up checking. Probably not the right move, but we go to a river. The river is a 6 of clubs, and now the backdoor club's complete, and now I really regret that turn check. My opponent thinks, and then he assembles a bet, and it's for $150, leaving himself about $125 behind. It just screams of a bet for value. He's trying to induce me to shove. Not to mention, this board is just way better for him, as he can have all the sets and even all the straights. So eventually I let it go. Here's an example of searching for a hand to play when you're card dead. We're in the hijack, and we look down at Queen 9 of diamonds. It folds all the way around to me, and I bump it up to $10. The action's on the cutoff, and he 3-bets to $30. It's back on me, and I'm so desperate to make something happen that I end up making the call, so we're off to a flop, out of position mind you, heads up.
The flop is ace jack 10, so I haven't opened in straight draw. I start with a check, and the cutoff bet's $50, leaving only about $30 behind. In a day where things just haven't gone my way, this feels like a spot to just rip it and hope I get there, so I jam all in for 80 effective, and he calls and he rolls over ace queen of clubs, so a king gives us a chop. We're really only drawing to an 8 here. The turn is a 7 of diamonds, the river a 9 of hearts. Maybe if I go eat something, my luck will change. When I came back from lunch, I only had about $300 in my stack, and the table has completely changed. Seats 8 and 1 are occupied by young, aggressive guys who both have very healthy stacks. I don't think I can compete with this short stack against these guys, so I top up for like the 3rd time today. We're in for $1,200, and it's not going to take long for us to need those extra chips. 2 hands later, we're in the cutoff, and we look down at ace 10 offsuit. There's a raise from a middle position player to $15. It's on me, and I haven't run great, and so I elect to just call here. I definitely need to be raising if I'm going to play this hand, especially being in late position. By calling, I allow the small blind and the big blind to call as well, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is ace queen 3, all clubs. We flop top pair on a monotone board. The original raiser continues with a bet of $20. It's on me, and I think if I'm going to play this hand, all I can do is call. There's no way King X or Jack X of clubs folds to a raise, so I probably actually need to fold here, but I end up flatting. The small blind folds, but the big blind calls, so now we're going off to a turn 3 ways. The turn is a 3 of hearts, and it pairs the board. The big blind checks again, and now the original raiser makes it $75. On me, and I have about $350 in my stack. If my opponent has a flush, then a raise is a death nail. I do have a player to act behind me, so that probably incentivizes me to raise, but once again, I elect to just call. I'm trying to get to showdown on a safe river. The big blind does fold, so we're off heads up. The river is a 2 of hearts, so lucky for me, no other clubs came. However, the original raiser fires a 3rd barrel, this time $150. It's starting to feel like ace king with the king of clubs. I don't have enough to raise and get a better hand to fold here, and it's just a really gross spot. I probably have one of the strongest hands I've had all day, but I know I can't be good. But at the same time today, I'm just not good enough to fold. I call, and I'm shown the bad news of ace king with the king of clubs, and the slaughter just continues. This will just kind of show you how my luck has been today. There's a button straddle, we're in +1, and we have ace queen offsuit. We see the small blind raise to $15 before it folds to under the gun, and he 3-bets to $55. Action on me, and I only have 236 total, and I have 2 face cards, so I rip it. It folds back to under the gun, and he asks me a question.
What would you like me to do?
I mean, if you fold, then once again I get no value. If you call, maybe I double up. If not, I probably go home.
I would like you to put the money in and then immediately muck your card.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that.
Well, I'm just saying what he wants you to do.
I mean, I'm running like shit, so.
I think you're ahead, but I call. Good luck. Call. Absolutely.
If you have ace king, you are ahead. I have ace queen.
I have ace queen.
It's just one of those days. The sick part, +2 said he folded ace king. How tight does he think I am? Under the gun and I get to chop up 21 bucks. We're in the big blind and we look down at ace jack offsuit. We see a raise from early position to $8. We see one call before Kyle in the cutoff bumps it up to $25. It folds to me, and I don't love playing out of position to Kyle, but I'm not going to fold here, so I flat. +2 in the hijack call as well, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is queen 10-4, all clubs, so another monotone board, but this time I have the ace of clubs in my hand. I start with a check, and it checks all the way through. The turn is the jack of hearts, so now I've made second pair. I'm not going to get unstuck checking, so I fire for $60. Surprisingly, everyone folds, and we get to win a small one. We're in +2 and we look down at queen jack offsuit. It folds to me and I bump it up to $12. We see a call from the button. The action then on the small blind and he 3-bets to $60. It folds back to me and queen jack offsuit is not a great hand, but I've got to get some money back and at least I'll be in position. I call, we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is Queen Jack 3 with 2 spades, so we flop top 2. It checks to me, and I want to bet a size that allows a queen or a jack to stick around while still charging draws, so I bet $45, about a third of the pot. Action back on the small blind, and he just rips it for $145 total. There's no way I'm folding this, so I make the call. The turn is a jack of diamonds, which boats us up, and the river is a meaningless 6 of diamonds. My opponent mucks, and perhaps we're on the comeback trail. There's a button straddle, we're in +1, and we look down at King 10 of clubs. It folds to me, and I bump it up to $20. +2 and the button straddler call, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Jack 8 deuce with 2 clubs, so we flop backdoor straight and flush draws. We have the King of clubs in our hand, so overall not a terrible flop. I start with a check, and it pretty quickly checks through. The turn is a 4 of clubs, so now our flush draw is live. Once again, I check, looking to possibly check raise, but once again, it checks all the way through. The river is a 10 of hearts, so we've made 2 pair. I don't want to check and let someone represent the flush. I'd rather do that myself, so I fire for $30. +2 folds, but the button isn't convinced of my story and he makes the call. I show it, and once again, we win. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at 7-8 offsuit. There is 1 early position raised to $15. When it gets to me, if I'm going to play this hand, I probably need to raise, but I've been in this mood where I just flat all day, so I flat, everybody else folds, we're heads up in position to a flop. The flop is 6-7-6, so we actually have 2 pair. The pre-flop raiser slows down and checks, and so I put a bet of $20 out. I want to make sure I charge any straight draws or any overcards. My opponent does call, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a jack of hearts, so now it brings in a heart flush draw. It checks to me again, but I don't see this jack changing very much, so I continue for $45. My opponent gives it a little bit of thought before putting in the raise to $115. Now, this opponent has been very spewy, and he's had to show some really bad bluffs, but he probably also plays this way to hook someone in when he has a made hand. Something just doesn't feel right here. Maybe it's how card dead I've been, maybe it's how late it's getting, I don't know, but something inside of me says to fold. And I've turned to my gut the last couple sessions I've played, and my gut has told me nothing. So if it's telling me to fold, I'm gonna go ahead and fold. My opponent was nice enough to show, and it was pocket 6s for flop quads. Nice hand. In the final hand of the night, we're on the button, and we look down at pocket 8s. There are 3 limps before the action gets to me, and it feels like a really good time to squeeze, so I bump it up to $26. We get 2 callers, and so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 10-9-6, so I flop myself an inside straight draw. It checks to me, and I'm totally fine with laying a c-bet out, and so I bet $60. I want to charge a drawing hand, much like the one I'm holding. +1 calls, but +2 folds, so we're heads up to the turn. The turn is a queen of hearts, and now I have a double gutter. In real time, I didn't think it changed too much, but now I realize that King Jack makes their straight. On this card, my opponent leads out for $125. It's back on me, and what to do? I only have about $300 left. I've run bad and been card dead all day. If I'm up against spades, I still have outs. I have absolutely 0 fold equity here. Tilted and thinking that I'm probably live, I jam and my opponent snaps. The river is a 4 of spades. My opponent flips over King Jack for the nut straight, and I was drawing dead. I've been at it for almost 6 hours today, and I just keep digging myself deeper and deeper into a hole. I tried, but it wasn't my day. I didn't run well, I didn't play well, so I decided to go ahead and pack it up and head home.
Ooh, that one hurt. I just felt so card dead all day, and I tried to be patient. It's tough. It was a very tight and passive table in the beginning. For a meetup game, that was a tight, start to the game. Obviously full house over full house. It's gonna happen. But then I felt so card dead, and when I finally had hands to try to do something, it seemed like I always had second best hand. Definitely wasn't the way I wanted things to go, and not the way I wanted to start 2023. in a big hole. And with my work schedule and my daughter's twirl schedule that starts in February, I mean, it was going to get harder to play anyways. And I got some work to do, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to do it. So in tonight for 1,200, out for 0. Yikes. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.